Hey guys, I'm going to apologize first of all for my background here. I'm trying to let Maddox have time over here in the corner where I normally do my filming so that he can do his homework. So you got a little bit more of my background in my den than you need, actually. It's kind of a mess. I apologize. This quarantine business is crazy. Let me tell you something. It is hard. You'd think being home more, I'd be more motivated to get cleaning and stuff done, and I've just been pretty useless. You could ask my wife. But look, what I want to do is for you guys, I want to do something a little different. I'm going to video me talking about the sections you're supposed to reading per day. I'm not going to load up all 5 at once. I've done that for my other classes. I'd rather not do that because I want you to think about these individually. I know some of you are going to go through and do the entire thing at once, and that's fine. All right, it really is. But I would like to still send you these videos once a day. What I'm going to do is I'm going to email them to you as a class. I got to figure out how a good way to do that since a lot of you don't get my emails. But I think I'm going to develop some groups on Outlook so I can skip iNow because iNow is just not behaving. So, but I want to talk about these sections with you and send you one per day and have you watch it. And I'd actually really like, I'm not trying to become some YouTube guy. You can tell by the awful camera I'm using and my terrible background that that's not my goal, okay? I'm a teacher. I'm not a YouTube person. But I really would like us to be able to have a dialogue down in our down in the comments about some of the stuff that we see in this, because man, this book, Tuesdays with Morrie, is one that has become one of the most powerful book I think that I teach. I haven't taught it as often as I have Fahrenheit 451. I started teaching it probably 2 or 3 years ago, and it's just I've learned that students really react to this. And to be honest with you, I feel a real kinship with some of the characters in here. Both of our 2 main characters. And because the characters are so powerful, I think it's something that's really useful for us today. And I think it's a great book for teaching us how to think about what we read and to reflect on our own lives. So let's look at, you guys are supposed to read 3 sections for me today on Monday. You're supposed to read one called The Curriculum, which just sets things up. Okay, so this is a neat book. It's nonfiction, but it's actually told like in a fictional narrative. Okay, so it's everything in it's true, but it's still told kind of like a story, all right? So it's going to have some of those same elements of both types of writing. Particularly, we've got to set up some exposition here. And the curriculum sets up like this frame for this narrative, okay? And so really, the curriculum sets up that this book is going to be set up as if it was a class, all right? You'll notice if you flip through and look at the chapters, he has like the first Tuesday and the 6th Tuesday. So what's happening is like once a week, pretty regularly, Mitch Albom, the author of this book, was going to the house of one of his favorite professors, a guy by the name of Morrie Schwartz, and they were going to sit together and talk about it. So he'd have a topic picked out. He'd say, this is what we're going to talk about today, and they would discuss it, all right? The first chapter here, and actually the first few chapters, today we have like the curriculum, the student, the syllabus, they all kind of set up the frame. They give you the exposition like you would in a normal story, all right? So the curriculum is very short. But let me just look at this section with you all together, okay? He says the last class of my old professor's life took place once a week in his house by a window in the study where he could watch a small hibiscus plant shed its pink leaves. The class met on Tuesdays. It began after breakfast. The subject was the meaning of life, and it was taught from experience. So he's telling us that this class is about life. It's going to be told from a man who's dying, all right? Morrie has ALS. You find that out pretty quick. In the reading for today, you should have gotten that already. He gets this death sentence because ALS is 100% fatality. You don't survive it. So he knows he's going to die. So he chooses to spend his last few years, or not the last few years, last few months, last few weeks, showing people what he thinks life is about as he's dying. All right, and it's really, you just get a whole new perspective on life. We see when you know it's about to end, it becomes different. I've got seniors right now who are realizing that high school for them is ending. Depending on how this goes, it may be over for them. Okay, there's still a hope that we come back in May, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen? It really just depends on these next few weeks. My seniors may never walk the halls of College Hill again as students, and as they're realizing that, it changes the way they see things. So that's what Morrie's going through, except on a much grander scale as it's his life. The most important part in this very small first section is the sentence, you are expected to respond to questions and you're expected to pose questions of your own. Guys, I don't think I can stress the importance of that enough. Being able to develop your own questions and critically think about stuff, whether it's math, whether it's history, whether it's English, whether it's just your daily existence, is such a key part of being a quality person. All right, we looked at Fahrenheit 451 a while back, and we saw what happens in a world where people don't think. You need to start thinking for yourself. Classes in college that made me become an English teacher, to be honest with you, were built around discussion. People would talk about things. You know, we'd go home and we would read something. We would come in the next day, and the professor would say, "Okay, so tell me something that really stood out to you." And you wouldn't just raise your hand and say, "I really liked this detail," or "I thought this was really cool." You wouldn't do that. You would raise your hand. You would say something like, "Why does Mitch Albom decide to set this up in such a simple way right away? I mean, he even tells us right away that his professor's going to die. Why would you do that? Why not let that stay for a little bit? Why immediately make how you can turn off so much of your audience by doing that?" I mean, we would come to class with statements like that. We wouldn't just go into class and say, "Hey, I really like that this book is written simply and I don't have to struggle to read it." I mean, we have to make that transition to being actual thinkers and looking at how this can apply to us, okay? So that's key. All right, after we get this initial setup, we do have this brief little section where we get some background, where Albom thinks back to his graduation and this interaction he had with his professor as he was about to leave the campus of, I believe it's Brandeis University, for, he's done. He's alumni now. And we get this interaction between the two of them, like they both really don't want the other one to forget them. And like, guys, that's so, I told you that both of these characters resonate with me and speak to me. I'm a teacher now, and I know how that feels. I don't want my students to forget me. And you know what? You guys do. And that's okay. You have your own life. I don't expect you to be married, have 2 kids, going to work every day and say, "I wonder what Mr. Morris is up to. I should give him a call." It'd be nice if you did, but I don't expect that by any stretch. The thing is that it's so easy to get wrapped up in our life that these people that once upon a time had a big influence on us, we just completely forget them. And you don't. And Albom's not even going to think about Morrie until he sees him on the news talking about dying. That's going to be the first time he thinks about him in years. When we see this moment right here at graduation where it looks like they're best friends. Okay, but the thing is that Mitch Albom's also worried his professor's going to forget him. And I remember those days. I remember my favorite teachers in college and thinking, as soon as I graduate, they're never going to think about me again. They're going to talk about how I was the best student they ever had, but then they're going to turn around and tell the next group of kids the same thing. And that kind of hurt. I don't know if you've ever been like me where you've been out someplace and you run into one of your old teachers and they don't even remember who you are. It's rough. So I got both of these, but this scene here kind of gives you that. And what's going to happen throughout this, and if you're looking at a digital version of this, you're probably not going to have it set up like the book does. The book has the actual, the syllabus or the student, and then it has this little italicized passage, which is usually a flashback or kind of an aside. And you're not going to be able to see that especially if you got an electronic version off the internet. It's not going to be done. So sadly enough, you don't get that breakdown, all right? So we go into the next section. You're supposed to read 3 chapters, really. The second one's the syllabus. That is the longer of the 2, and this is the one where we get the background on Morrie getting his diagnosis about ALS. We get a lot of characterization about him, sets up who he is, what kind of person he is. He talks about the dancing. That's a really key scene where he talks about, Morrie loved to dance. He would show up and dance any chance he could get, and he wasn't good at it. It's important to realize that this guy was really a bad dancer, but he enjoyed it, and he enjoyed it for himself, not for what it meant to other people. Dancing is so much of that is about showing off. So much of it is about, trying to elicit a response from the people in the room, whether it's the person you're dancing with or whether it's just wanting people around you to see, man, that guy's a really good dancer. And so many of us who dislike dancing, it's because we don't want people to laugh at us because we know we're not good. This guy didn't care, and that really sets up a central point of his character, in that it's not that he doesn't care, like, I don't care what people think, because he does, but it's that this is something he loves, and it's not for other people, it's for him. So that's kind of cool. We also get the point that when he stopped dancing, because ALS does impact your muscles, so he realizes that he just can't dance anymore, and that takes away the things he loves. And ALS is going to do that to him throughout this story. It'll take that. It'll take his ability to interact with people. It's going to rob him of life, and eventually that's literally what it does. So he finds out he has ALS, and it's one of the rare scenes in the book where he actually feels sorry for himself too. As he's leaving, they give him him and his wife a bunch of pamphlets, and his wife's thinking about honestly thinking about what most people would be thinking about if you're a spouse. How are we going to pay for things? How am I going to get by without this person? While he's walking out and seeing everyone going about their day-to-day business, people coming out of the grocery store, just taking their children on a walk. And he's like, how can people be doing this when I just found out the worst news of my life? And of course, we know deep down that, people get bad news every day. And to them, it's the worst news. For the rest of us, it's just another part of life. But this is one of those moments to think and to reflect about how often we ignore the fact that people are going through some of the hardest times of their lives. Guys, right now, with the situation in our country, there are people in this world right now who are having the most difficult times of their lives. In fact, I would say a majority of our country right now is suffering through the most difficult times of their lives. And so often we just kind of ignore it and blow it off. We think about our own stuff. We get mad because we couldn't go to the beach for spring break. Well, we don't realize there's people that lost their jobs and can't even buy food right now. Or people who just lost a loved one out of the blue from coronavirus. I mean, there's so many things right now that people are living through the worst day of their life while we're just casually going through our day. Now, you can't let that eat you up. You can't spend every day thinking about people's bad times. It will drive you nuts. But there is this element of we should be a little bit more aware of those around us, even if it's just your friends at school who are having a bad day, and being there for them and reaching out to them. I mean, do you really need to talk about, why you hate Mr. Morse's English class for the 5th time? Or do you really need to speak to that person about, hey, man, I know you and your parents were having a fight yesterday. How are things going? It's much more important to do that. Now, right away, though, Morrie retreats from that self-pity and goes immediately to, this section where he talks about, my old professor had made a profound decision, one he began to construct the day he came out of the doctor's office with a sword hanging over his head. Do I wither up and disappear, or do I make the best of my time left? He had asked himself. The question everyone asks when they get that diagnosis, what do I do? Am I going to sit at home and feel sorry for myself? Am I going to reach out and spend the little bit of time I have left with the people I love? Am I going to make a bucket list of things I've always wanted to do that I need to get out and get done? But we all have to struggle with this if you were to get that sort of diagnosis. Since he would not wither, he would not be ashamed of dying. Instead, he would make death his final project, the center point of his days. I mean, that's a t-shirt right there. He's like, no, I'm going to use this as a teachable moment. I'm going to let people know what it's like and how to approach death. And man, such a powerful thing and such a selfless act, to be honest with you, because most of us think this is my time. I'm not going to use it doing something for other people. I want to, do the things I wanted to do before I died. So, at this point, Morrie starts going back I think we're going to get it in the next section. I don't know if it's this one or not. Yeah, it's going to be later, where he talks about actually, his walking into his final class. But still, there's a lot here about, in this last little bit of the syllabus, kind of setting up Morrie's attitude about dying, and what he plans on doing as he approaches that point in his life. Now, the coolest part of this whole first day of reading, though, is the last part of the syllabus, where Morrie one of his colleagues dies out of the blue, heart attack, I believe it was. And so there's a funeral, and he goes to the funeral, and he sits and he listens to people saying all these wonderful things about his dead colleague. And he comes to this realization that, I mean, honestly, we all should have come to at some point. And it's that it's so sad that after a person's death, we all get together and talk about the great things about them when, honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. They're gone. They can't hear it. They can't enjoy those things. And he realizes that wouldn't it be great if we said all these things to people while they were still here? And we just don't. So often we have opportunities to say nice things to people. You come home daily and see your parents, and they ask you how your day was, and you go, it was fine. And you go to your room, and they don't see you again until dinner. And then, you grab whatever you're eating, you go back to your room, for some of you may eat at the table with your dinner and then with your parents, and the whole time you're just trying to get out of there. There's no amount of, actually having a conversation and talking with them. And I know a lot of you have great relationships with your parents, but yet you couldn't tell from y'all's interactions. So Morrie comes up with this great idea. He's like, we're going to have a funeral for me before I die. So it's not a selfish thing. It's not only so he can hear all these nice things about himself from other people. It's so he has a chance to tell them things too. I mean, that's such a powerful moment where, you get the opportunity to tell people all the things you wanted to tell them about how much they've impacted you, how much you love them, and they get to tell you the same thing. Guys, you don't realize how much that turns someone's life around. In our world, we don't see how much words impact people for the negative and the positive. We do see the negative a lot. Everybody wants to talk about bullying constantly, but the fact is that just a kind word here and there can completely change people's lives. All right. The first week of online classes, I got emails from a couple of seniors when it really started to hit that this was not going to be a 2-week thing. This was going to be a much longer thing. And the seniors started to understand this may be the end of their time in high school. I got some amazing emails from students saying, thank you for all you've done. And they just went into detail. It let me know that they weren't just, saying, hey, Mr. Morris, you're a good guy. I appreciate you. And the end, which, I mean, that's nice too. But to hear all this, like, this is how much you've impacted me. This is what you've done in my life. This is what I'm always going to remember. It makes it worth everything else that comes with teaching. It makes it worth all of the zeros that I got from people just choosing not to do my work. So whenever I get frustrated about that, I look back at those emails and realize that, at least for a couple of people, I was making a difference. And that makes getting up worth it. That makes, the paycheck, which isn't bad, by the way, guys, but it's not as good as it could be with the education I have. It makes it worth it. It makes the long nights, it makes making these videos worth it. It makes all of that have value. And so what I want you to do, and this is why I'm doing these on a day-to-day basis, I want to be able to take time to give you like a kind of a task to do that day. And I realize you have a lot of things to do, and I realize very few of you will probably do what I'm going to say, but it doesn't matter. If only one out of the 40-something of you that are looking at this chooses to do this, it will impact the life of someone, I can promise you, all right? So what I want you to do, I want you to think about 2 to 3 people who have meant something to you, okay? A teacher, a friend, a parent, a family member, anybody who has in some way impacted you in a positive way. And I want you to think for a little bit about not just that they impacted you and thanking them, but how and why. And I want you to take the time to tell them, This disease has taught us we don't know how long we're going to have some of our loved ones with us. Something could happen tomorrow. My wife got a scare earlier in the month, or some last month in March, because a couple of doctors she worked with were showing symptoms of coronavirus, and there was a real fear that maybe she had gotten it. And guys, that was a rough couple of days for me, thinking that if she got it and something happened to her, what would I do? So I want you guys to think about that, and I want you to take the time to reach out to these people, these 2 or 3 people that you picked, and let them know, okay? Send them an email. Send them an actual letter. Believe it, if you can find, if it's like a family member and your parents have their address, you guys do not realize how powerful letters are, okay? People never get them. You always get junk mail. And also, if I got a letter that was addressed to me and it was from, a cousin of mine or from one of my students, I would be, I would love it. I love the emails. I can only imagine like the actual physical letters. I have a drawer at the school where I keep anything a student has ever given me. If they wrote me a note, if they did send me a letter, sometimes seniors do that after they've left. I have everything from 15 years of teaching. I have a scrapbook my wife put together where she took the best. She actually asked a bunch of my former students to write me something, and she collected it all and put it in the scrapbook. That is the thing I save if this house burns down. Okay, besides my family, the next thing I grab is that scrapbook, because if I'm having a bad day, I can pick that up and read it. Because just because somebody took 5 minutes to sit down and say, thank you for helping me through blank, Mr. Morris, it really changed my life. That just tells you right there, this was worth it. It all was worth it. So I'd like you to take the time, find 2 or 3 people that you know, and to do that for them. You'd be amazed how many of them will return that favor and tell you to, because a lot of us don't realize the impact we have on people. We just don't. But it's pretty powerful, okay? So take the time, do that. This doesn't have to be due today. I'm not going to take a grade for it. I would just like you to take the chance to bless somebody. I know it means a lot to me. I would like to see you touch the lives of some other people. So thank you guys for taking the time. This is almost a 20-minute video, and I realize a lot of you have other things to do, and I appreciate you watching it. So thank you guys. If you would like to comment some down below, I'm not a YouTube guy. I'm not trying to be one, but it's nice to hear from you. That's the only way I can interact right now. So thank you guys for taking the time to do this, and don't forget to reach out to somebody close to you today, all right? Okay, thanks, guys.